Welcome back to the second episode of the Deconstructing Data podcast, or so we're temporarily calling it now. More on that in a second, but for now, I'm Jessie Lezak, Head of Marketing at BDEX, along with our co-host, Joshua Morgan, BDEX Content Marketer Extraordinaire, and of course, David Finkelstein, BDEX's Tech and Data Guru, but also our co-founder and CEO. So today we have a guest, and his name is Michael Aronov. Aronov? Aronov. How do you say it, Michael?
Either one will work. Aronov is probably more closer.
Aronov. Okay. And he is VDEX's co-founder, board member, and chief data officer. Mike has over 25 years of experience in the technology field and helped David build one of the first internet service providers in the country, National Internet Source, Inc. So Mike is responsible for directing, onboarding for new data sources and account management here at BDEX. Michael, thank you for being here, even though I know you were not feeling well too long ago. So thanks for still making this happen today. Would you mind walking the listeners through what has happened since you found David's job posting in a newspaper job board all these years ago?
Wow, that's going back really far. Me and David have been in business close to 30 years now. I think it was back in 1994 where I saw a little ad in the local paper that's saying insurance service provider looking for help. At the time, I was working for a tech company, and internet seemed so interesting, and I saw it as the future. And I kind of answered the ad, and the rest is sort of history. We have many companies together, and BDEX is the latest iteration of that.
That's amazing. Well, Michael, you had a really touching post on LinkedIn not too long ago about being a Russian-born citizen and now living in the U.S. who finds it important to continue sharing messages of solidarity with Ukraine. And that post in particular, it got a lot of interaction and engagement. I think it really touched a lot of people. Would you mind speaking about that and telling us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I came here with my family from Russia when I was 9 years old, and my parents still keep in touch with people in Russia and Ukraine, so they're kind of seeing things firsthand of what's happening. So it's just an ugly picture all around. So I made that post in reference to that, but um, it's um, it's just painful to watch what's happening, and I don't think my feelings are any different than what most people are feeling, but it's just I think I'm a little bit closer to it just because I talked to my dad in reference to this, and he talks to people in Ukraine, and they're really suffering, and people in Russia are also suffering in terms of the embargoes and sort. So it's I guess it's touching a little bit closer to home.
Yeah. Well, um, thanks for making that post. I think, it really resonated well with a lot of people. Um, so can you tell the listeners more about, getting back into BDEX? So more about your everyday tasks and, your part in helping the business succeed.
Yeah, on a daily basis, the things that I focus on is the integration of our data partners. These are data providers, integrating them into our platform. And the other part of that is working with the sales team of in terms of getting the data that they need and providing the custom solutions that they need. What we're seeing more and more of is people coming to us with very unique requests that other data providers can't really facilitate, and that's those are always really interesting. And I think probably at least once every week or 2 weeks we have somebody coming down the pipe who's really interested in something that nobody else can provide, and we usually can make them happy and solve their problem.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And before we dive into some of the topics that we want to cover, which of course are identity resolution, machine learning, OMNI IQ, Is there anything, David, Josh, you guys might want to ask Michael in terms of his background and intro before we get into some of the more hard topics?
Well,
David,
I think I know too much about Mike's background, so
Yeah.
it's it'd be interesting to see what Josh has to say. But look, Mike and I have been working together for, like you said, almost 30 years. It's one of the things that we learned over the course of time is that I think that we've gotten to know each other and what our skill sets are, and Mike internally is always our problem solver. When we're looking for a solution, trying to figure out how we're going to get this done for a client, I think a lot of times we turn to Mike, and Mike's creativity is is what helps us try to figure out how we can solve a solution for somebody. And so we're blessed to have him on the team, and for me to have him as a partner for so many years has been obviously a very successful partnership. So I don't know that I have any questions, but certainly have that.
Maybe I should have said comments. That's more what I was looking for. So thank you for that, David.
Certainly have that to add. Yeah.
I guess my question would be, and maybe there's not a whole lot of answer here because you were kind of young when you came to the United States, but were there any adjustments that you had to make, versus living in Russia versus when you're coming over to the United States that might have been like a culture shock, or just different ways that you had to kind of integrate into the kind of the American culture?
yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of hard to answer that just because it's hard to see the forest through the trees. But I think looking back, because I came to this country when I was 9, I didn't speak the language, and kind of not fitting in, just because um, you're different, and the being kind of an outsider. It might seem like a negative, but I think it's, to me, it worked as a positive, just because when you're a little kid and you're trying to figure out the world, and things are scary, and you kind of start developing analytical way of looking at the world, just to make sense of it. And I think if there's any, I wouldn't say a superpower, but the power that I have, is just the ability to analyze problems in a very analytical way. And I guess that kind of started from childhood. So I would think that, I think, like in most people, I think when you get to a certain point in life, you realize that what you thought were your weaknesses turned out to be your strengths, because you overcompensated for that. And I think that's probably what happened in my case.
That's interesting. And I'm just going to throw this out there. I put a chat in the chat box, but Michael, your browser is limiting the storage available to Riverside, so it may cut out. Not sure if there's anything we can do about that, though. But if you want to stop your camera, maybe that would help.
You want me to stop the camera? Let me try.
You might have to.
Okay.
All right. So this is more of a conversation starter for David and Michael, but how would you explain identity resolution to someone who has never heard the term before?
So since this is I don't know, we've talked about it a bunch of times. I'm going to pass this one to Mike and let him put him on the spot, because we talked about identity so many times in the podcast itself.
Yeah, there's a different ways to answer that question. I think maybe the main way is the ability to target a user, across different platforms, and to make sure that connection is very accurate. That's really what we're focused on, for many years, and I think one of the big advantages that we have in the ecosystem, to be able to really differentiate the signal from the noise.
All right. Yeah, no, that's a really good, simple explanation.
Yeah, and I think touching upon accuracy is an important thing to understand also. Just in general, it's easy to explain identity resolution and just think of it as the ability to reach consumers, at their different touch points, but it's another thing to make sure that that's accurately done. And that's obviously a lot more complex than it seems.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So did you guys just wake up one day and say, we're going to go help people by providing deterministic identity resolution, or how did this come about?
Doesn't everybody? No, I personally, I think that, if I don't know if this question was directed to Mike in particular or me, but I'm jumping in, I guess. Look, it came down to the fact that when we started this business in 2014, there were a few companies that were doing identity resolution, but most of those solutions required sort of marrying your platform to someone else's. And we quickly found that that wasn't going to work for us because we became way too dependent on someone else's platform and not having the transparency for our customers. And so I think the aha moment was, we woke up one day and said, you know what? We need to do this ourselves. We can't rely on someone else to do this for us. And so oddly enough, there probably was that, that moment where we just said, woke up and said, we got to do it ourselves and not rely on someone else.
Do you remember that day, Michael?
Yeah, I think one of the issues that we always saw is that we knew eventually, and this is going back half a decade, we knew that eventually people are going to start valuing the data based on its accuracy and based on its quality, and it's not going to be volume. And we always just positioned our business in that direction. We always pride ourselves on quality over quantity, and over the years we've come up with some very unique ways of being able to differentiate the two. And so when the customers come to us, they're really getting the cream of the crop of the most accurate data.
Well, you guys were right. So how is what we do at BDEX different from all the others out there who are, guessing on their target market with probabilistic models? Michael, I'll direct that towards you because I've heard David's answer to this.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer probabilistic could work in terms of the identity stuff, just because we have a chance to analyze the data from numerous providers, and it's just a big drop off in the quality. So it really has to be an accurate match. Like I said earlier, I think that it's kind of becoming obvious that quality is going to become more and more important as we move forward over quantity.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, it's having data is great, but it's the question is what can you do with that data that actually makes kind of the difference with it? Because having data for data's sake was at one point just having a ton of data was fantastic. You had those bragging rights, but then it became what can we even do with this data? What can the data do for us that actually makes it worth having this data in the first place?
Everything sort of transitions that way, right? So if you look back historically on the internet and advertising, and you look at everything from banner advertising to pay-per-click, pop-up ads, there was a point in time where just advertising on the internet was like this huge thing, and everybody's like, oh, you got to advertise on the internet. So people threw a lot of money at it. But then over time, people started to realize that, okay, just having a lot of ads out there isn't making me money. I have to track these ads somehow, and I have to, measure their performance. And so that started, whether it be with banner advertising or pay-per-click, now video advertising, like everything sort of is transitioning towards measurement and performance. And so that, that's true for data as well. And so the reality is just having a lot of data and using, all this data for targeting just doesn't, it's becoming to the point where just volume is meaningless, and you have to understand accuracy and performance and measurement in order to gain value. And so, yeah, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, just having lots of volume meant something, but today it really doesn't. It's more about accuracy and quality over quantity.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you might as well just be putting a commercial on the TV and hoping it reaches somebody. Maybe we'll put a McDonald's commercial on there for you, David, because
yeah, as we've discussed, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All the McDonald's ads I see, and having not been to one in a good 25, 30 years. So,
right. So break down for me, because Jesse's talked about it. I know that there's a fantastic new product coming out. But break down OMNI IQ for me, and kind of for the listeners. What is OMNI IQ?
Is that who are you? Yeah, who you're directing that to, Mike?
Yeah.
No, I'll take it. I'll let Dave take that.
Oh, well, let me take that. Okay.
That was here for last week.
Y'all can do rock, paper, scissors for who's going to answer it.
I think you both need to answer it.
Yeah, we can both answer it. Look, the bottom line is, look, OMNI IQ itself encompasses a lot of products across our, the BDEX realm, but the machine learning product that we've launched is probably we're launching is the most prominent, and we're looking at helping companies do something differently going forward, which is leveraging their first-party data, and that's something that a lot of companies haven't done historically well. And a lot of companies have relied on third-party data, and we've all discussed this, and we've discussed this before in this forum. It's reliance on third-party data is waning with all the privacy changes and changes with iOS and others, Google's and deprecating third-party cookies, all that stuff. So we want to help companies leverage their first-party data, and first-party data is only so valuable when you're just looking at it, it alone, because you're learning something about your existing customers, which is great. Now you can sort of know how to serve them better, but how can you use that to find new customers? And that's what this product is about. It's really about helping them leverage their first-party data to find new customers that look just like their existing customers.
Michael, what would you add?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the surprising aspects is just how little people know about their customers, and I'm not talking about the small players, but I'm talking about very large players. They might know the basic information like household income, and gender, and stuff like that, but they really don't know the ins or outs and the things that move the needle. I'll give you a quick little example. We work with a furniture company, and the furniture company was interested in finding out why some of their customers came in the store while others bought online. And one of the interesting things was that the ownership of a pet, and that's something really nobody. It's very hard to find out. We have over 5,000 different data segments, and that was pretty easy for us. So it was really easy for us to help them out and how to get more customers in the store. And that's just something that's just very difficult for anybody to do, really. People who have the first-party data, and there's really nothing that exists that make it easy to be able to find those factors that move the purchase. So it's just such an interesting field to be in, and what we're offering now. So makes it so easy for companies to just get that, once again, the signal through the noise.
So, Michael, I'll ask you this first. Break down how OMNI IQ will help those companies save money.
There is a tremendous amount of money wasted right now, as David alluded to, in terms of him seeing McDonald's ads. There's really no reason for him to see McDonald's ads. The companies are literally spending billions each year to push a product that nobody's interested in, or to push a product that they already have and purchased. there is tremendous amount of money to be saved to be able to get the right message um, that's customized to that person. That is also something that they're actually interested in. Um, and when you have a lot of input from different statistics on what the persona of that customer is, it makes it much more accurate and much more cost effective to be able to target those people in a very specific manner that would be able to facilitate a sale.
David, do you have anything to add onto that?
No, honestly, that was perfectly said. I mean, it's that's the fact. I mean, there's so much money wasted, and companies are targeting the wrong people, and they're doing that because look, if they send an ad out to 1 million people, and they know that even if it's just 10 or 20% of the people in that audience are their target customer, then they're reaching their target customer. But what they don't realize is that they're also reaching a lot of people that aren't going to buy, and because of that, they're wasting a lot of money. And so anything that you can do to improve on that is going to help them save money. And so the question is, what happens when you're helping that company save money, right? If the more money they can save, the more they can invest further into, improving their products, or maybe improving the pricing for their customers, or whatever it is. So downstream, things just get better. The experience gets better for the consumer, and the experience is also better, obviously, for the company that's doing the advertising. So it is a win-win across the board if you can achieve it, and that's the important thing is finding solutions that will help you achieve that.
And then, are there, as far as the benefit for your, having OMNI IQ, are there any industries or areas that would benefit more from using OMNI IQ, or is it kind of general across the board that every business and industry can benefit from OMNI IQ?
I mean, we're a consumer-facing, or not a consumer-facing product, but a consumer-based data product. So I'd say that any business that is trying to reach consumers, those are the ones that are going to benefit the most from this.
Yeah, I think also one of the shortcomings that exists is the ability to be able to create audiences within a specific geolocation area. So if you're making pools, for example, there's really no reason for you to, if you're a pool installer, for example, there's no reason for you to target somebody who lives 200 miles away. But it becomes very easy with the machine learning part to be able to find the audiences in your particular area, which I think is another side of this that hasn't been addressed on a really in an accurate fashion. So if you just have particular areas that you want to target, or if the models show that your customers live in certain areas and have some commonality, be it how far they live from metro area or the average population, whatever it is, to be able to find that signal, once again, is crucial, and to be able to target in the particular geolocation area becomes really interesting and valuable to the buyers.
So, Michael, how is OMNI IQ different from what's out there on the market right now?
I don't think anything exists right now that makes a person to be able to come off a street, create the audience that they want, to get that accuracy that we provide, and to be able to push that to Trade Desk or to LiveRamp or for print, for example. This makes it really easy for people to come off the street and to solve that problem at a very low cost way.
Like it. David, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I think that there is a lack of tools out there to help companies build and leverage build audiences and leveraging their first party data. And so I think that's the key niche for us is not only doing that, but doing it, in a way that is accurate and actionable.
So I have a question that's totally like it's just something that, because we were talking about the McDonald's earlier, and David, you are somebody that you're like, I'm not going to eat there, and some people do, but I don't think anybody has, not thought about. It's not like we see a commercial from McDonald's and we go, "Oh, I totally forgot that place existed." Um, is there ever a time that a business would, and this is kind of off the subject here, but is there ever a time when we go, why is this business even advertising? Um, because it's not like, who has not seen the Golden Arches? So when I see like a McDonald's, we could talk about Burger King or Wendy's, primarily fast food. I do we ever go like, why are they advertising? Because they're always constantly on our mind, and every time I drive down the road, I'm going to see them anyway.
Yeah, I think people say that all the time. I think that, however, there's, it's branding, right? So ultimately, most times that you see McDonald's, there's some other fast food in the area, a Burger King or something else. So the goal there is that, when you come to that street corner and you're making a decision of where you're going to go, that, McDonald's wants their brand in your head, but Burger King wants their brand in your head, and so on and so on. So yes, it's branding. It's Coke and Pepsi, the same thing, right? They're hoping that when you go to make that decision, you're going to be like, yeah, that's the one that's on my mind, so that's the one I'm going to grab. Or marketing a specific new product or whatever it is. But there's a lot of reasons to do that branding, but there's also a lot of reasons to do it to the right people. And that's what it comes down to is in linear TV, there's rarely the opportunity to do that. The technology doesn't really exist. CTV is a different thing. In CTV solutions, there is targeting, and so those solutions, whether it be mobile advertising, web, or CTV, those solutions where targeting exists, it's important to understand how to do it, because that in itself could vastly improve the performance of your ad, because it gives you the opportunity to reach the right people rather than just reaching an audience in general.
Perfect. Well, Michael, we are trying to come up with a name for the podcast, and we have gotten it down to 4 now. And so the 4 that we have are Deconstructing Data, and Deconstructing Marketing Data, Cookies and Data, and Data Dive with David. So out of those 4, is there one that you just go, man, that's it right there?
I think the first one is probably the best one.
Deconstructing Data?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
That seems to be overwhelmingly winning.
That's one we all like too.
Yep,
Cool.
that's one I like. So, Michael, what type of guests do you think we should have on the show? Like, who would be your dream guest to have on the Deconstructing Data podcast?
There's 2 types of people that I'd love to talk to. One would be people on the very deep technical side, to get really nerdy.
Yeah.
And the other side is just, I'm really interested in people who handle marketing for very particular niche. That's how I always find that really interesting. People who only play in one certain side of the market, and they're very good at that. Those are people that I can really learn a lot from. So I always enjoy people who have very micro niche fields that they're in on the marketing side, because you get some really interesting dynamics that you don't usually get from people who do just mass marketing.
Yeah. Any names that come to mind of, as examples?
Yes, but I'm not sure. I'll hold off on the names for now.
Okay.
But yes, there's a bunch of people I'd love to talk to.
Well, maybe we can tag them when we post this and see if
Absolutely.
they want to join us.
That would be great. We'll call them up.
Yeah.
Well, in closing, we would love to get input from the listeners about what you'd like to learn more about, what questions you have that we can answer for you and should answer for you in the upcoming series. And, stuff that focuses on data trends and advertising and marketing and um, identity resolution, machine learning, data privacy, and data as a service. So we would love to share your qualitative data with us.
So please share any and all feedback in the comments wherever you're listening to this. And you can also reach us at info@bdex.com. So that brings us to the conclusion of the show. Is there anything else anyone wants to add?
Just happy to be
I
here.
enjoyed talking to you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael and David and Josh. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you all. Yeah, thanks for joining us, Mike.
Well, thank you for your time.